MovieTalk, let's go. Søren with the mic, and you know he's the king. Got the ghouls and the ghosts, hear the horror bells ring. The chromia by his side, and the haunted dolls art. Spooky humor and film, tearing fears apart. Cult classics and chills, come and sip on the grill. They break it down right with analysis skills. Every episode brings
Good evening, creatures of the night and connoisseurs of cinematic chaos. I'm Søren, your friendly neighborhood necromantic cinephile. And with me, as always, the doll who once tried to sacrifice a Netflix algorithm to the elder gods. Necromia.
It deserved it. But tonight's episode isn't about a movie. Tonight, we are dissecting something far more disturbing.
Oh?
Your collection.
My collection?
Yes. The towering walls of VHS, DVDs, Blu-rays, and 4K. A physical media empire that could survive the apocalypse.
I like to think of it less as an empire, but more like a cinematic sanctuary.
Søren, there are over 4,000 movies in this room. At this point, you're legally required to file taxes as a video store.
That's fair.
But I always wondered something. How did this happen? How does a perfect, normal Danish child turn into this?
Well, Necromia, like most origin stories, it begins in childhood.
Ah, yes. The most dangerous phrase of any future collector.
Picture this, a small Danish town, a kid in kindergarten, and his grandmother picking him up in the afternoon. But this wasn't a normal ride home. No, because first we had to make an essential stop.
Let me guess, a haunted video store.
Even better, a grill bar, chicken, french fries, and a race home against time. Because television greatness was about to begin.
Oh no, I know that look.
We're talking about the holy trinity of 80s television. Knight Rider, The A-Team, and MacGyver.
Oh yes, a talking car, a group of mercenaries, and a man who could defuse a nuclear bomb with duct tape and a paperclip.
Exactly. Now imagine being a small kid watching that. Of course, my brain immediately concluded something very important.
Let me guess, you wanted to become a hero.
No, I wanted a talking car and the ability to save the day, while also impressing women.
Ambitious.
But something happened during these afternoons. Something that would change the rest of my life.
Let me guess. The collecting.
Exactly, because soon I didn't just want to watch movies, I wanted to own them. And that's where the story really begins. Before Blu-ray, before DVD, before streaming convinced the world that movies should disappear the moment your subscription expires, there was VHS. Big, clunky, glorious VHS.
Oh yes, the sacred plastic brick. Rewind or die trying.
Rewind!
But to understand why VHS meant so much, you have to understand something about the world back then. When I was a kid in Denmark, television was, well, kind of limited. Very limited. A few channels, a handful of children's programs, and if you missed something, well, you missed it.
No replay, no streaming, no algorithm deciding what you should watch next.
Nope, just a broadcast schedule and a lot of waiting. So most of the time, there simply wasn't much to watch. But one day, something incredible happened. A small kindergarten kid discovered the red button on the VCR.
The forbidden button. The button that creates monsters.
Exactly, because suddenly I realized something magical. If I pressed record, I could keep the shows. I could watch them again and again and again.
You had discovered immortality for television.
Suddenly, a whole new world opened, and I could make my own tapes, entire VHS tapes, filled with my own favorite shows. Cartoons, children programs, things like Bamse and Kylling, Tom and Jerry, Looney Tunes, and various Disney shows like DuckTales, Rescue Rangers, and Tailspin.
So, instead of waiting a week for your favorite show, you simply built your own television station.
Exactly. Suddenly I had tapes I could play whenever I wanted. Whole afternoons of cartoons ready to go.
You became a curator, a historian, a protector of magnetic tape.
Or as my parents probably saw it, a kid who filled every drawer in the house with labeled VHS tapes.
Let me guess, handwritten labels.
Of course, carefully written titles, sometimes completely wrong, but always recorded with love.
And this was the moment the monster was born.
Exactly. Because once you experience the joy of owning your favorite shows, you never really stop chasing movies. Now, there was something else that shaped my love of movies. Video nights.
Oh yes, the ancient ritual of the video store.
Exactly. Going to the rental stop, picking a movie, grabbing snacks, and setting in for the night. My parents loved movies too. So those evenings became a regular thing growing up. Those nights were magical. Popcorn made in a pot by my mother, candy and soda that my parents brought home from Germany, and a movie playing on television.
A sacred cinematic feast.
There where I first saw movies like Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark and Back to the Future. Movies that felt larger than life. Movies that made you feel like the world was bigger than your living room. But there was another important influence. My older brother, because he had access to movies I probably wasn't supposed to see yet.
Oh yes, the classic older sibling horror gateway.
Exactly, through him I discovered films like The Thing and Child's Play.
Nothing says childhood like a shape-shifting alien and a homicidal doll.
But the one that really got me was Poltergeist. I saw that when I was about 8 years old.
Childhood trauma, the foundation of every horror fan.
To this day, I still remember the tree outside my parents' house during storms because that movie made trees, suspicious.
So somewhere between popcorn nights and childhood terror, the collector was evolving.
And around that time, television in Denmark also changed. When TV2 landed, suddenly there was more shows and more cartoons to record. Of course, the heroes that every kid in the late 80s worshipped, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Later comes something even better, late-night horror broadcasts.
Oh yes, the sacred midnight horror. On Danish, Natsgyser.
Those broadcasts opened a whole new world of horror.
And of course, sometimes you could miss these recordings, but if I didn't get it, my childhood friend Stefan probably recorded it, and then we could borrow tape from each other as well. So it was a great time also with the Midnatsgyser.
And by then, my VHS tapes were multiplying rapidly. But the moment that truly changed everything came when my parents took me along to visit some friends who had cable television.
And suddenly there were more channels.
Many more channels like TV3, more cartoons, more movies, more everything. And that was the moment my brain exploded, because I realized something. There was an entire universe of television out there that we didn't have. We're talking more movies, more cartoons, even MTV.
Yeah, rock and roll.
Also, my friend Stefan, sometimes when I was over at his place, his uncle had cable and he had recorded wrestling from TV3. So that was awesome to watch with the Danish legend Asbjørn Ries.
And thus, the master plan began.
Exactly, a 3-year plan. Because shortly after that, my brother had his confirmation. And during that celebration, he received something that blew my mind. 6,000 Danish kroner in total from all the guests.
To an 11-year-old, that's basically a dragon's treasure.
Exactly. And suddenly I realized something. In 3 years, I would have my own confirmation.
And instead of a bicycle,
I wanted a satellite dish.
naturally.
So the plan was set. And 3 years later, when my own confirmation arrived, I received over 8,000 kroner.
The plan could finally be executed.
Satellite dish. Second VHS machine. And suddenly the gates of television heaven opened. Channels like FilmNet and TV1000, movies played over and over and over again.
Which meant the VHS archive exploded.
Action films, comedies, science fiction, and of course, Arnold Schwarzenegger. But something else important also happened around the time. In the middle of 7th grade, I met someone, a guy named Jens.
The partner in cinematic crime.
And Jens had something very important. A satellite dish, a VCR, and exactly the same priorities as me.
So, for the first time in your life, you had met another human being with correct priorities.
Channels like FilmNet and TV1000 were suddenly broadcasting movies around the clock. But after midnight, things got interesting.
Oh, yes. The educational programming.
Let's just say late night television in the 90s had a very adult side.
I'm sure it was strictly for research purposes.
Of course. But here's the thing. By that point, I had 2 VCRs, which meant something very important. I could record 2 tapes at the same time.
Oh no.
Oh yes. Suddenly, teenage boys I had never spoken to before would appear very quietly, very nervously, with a blank VHS tape and about 200 kroner.
So you accidentally opened a small underground video distribution service.
Maybe not totally accidental, but let's just say my late night recording schedule became very busy. Sometimes I had to wake up in the middle of the night, switch channels, and keep the tapes running.
This is the most entrepreneur story I have heard all week.
And the funny part? Every krone went straight back into movies.
Yeah, of course it did.
More VHS tapes, more action films, more horror, more Schwarzenegger.
So technically, adult television helped fund your movie collection.
Let's just call it creative financing.
The origin story of a collector sponsored by late night.
By the time I met Jens, the collecting had already begun, because recording tapes was fun, but owning the real thing was something else entirely.
Oh yes, the sacred difference between a bootleg and the real artifact.
Exactly. Already as a kid, I started buying original VHS tapes whenever I could. Pocket money, birthday money, Christmas money, and later, something even better, a job after school.
The moment a collector gains financial independence.
Some of the earliest films I owned were absolute classics to me. Movies like Friday the 13th and Bloodsport.
Jean-Claude Van Damme performing illegal karate in slow-motion cinema.
But the true king of my VHS shelf was Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Of course he was.
Movies like Terminator 1 and 2, Predator, Commando, and Total Recall were already in my world.
So when Jens entered the story, you were already deep into the obsession.
Exactly. But Jens had something equally dangerous, the same priorities, a massive curiosity for movies.
A perfect storm.
We started borrowing tapes from each other, introducing each other to movies the other one hadn't discovered yet. Entire weekends could disappear with us watching movies with an awesome collection to choose from.
The sacred VHS exchange program.
Yeah, my original VHS collection had grown over 300 tapes.
300.
Original releases, horror, action, sci-fi.
So, before DVD even entered the picture, you had already built a small video store.
Exactly.
At this point, you could legally charge late fees.
But something very important happened near the end of 9th grade. I had a short internship at Panasonic Center, and that's where I saw it for the first time. DVD.
This is DVD.
The shiny disc of destiny.
The image was sharper, the sound was better, no rewinding. I remember thinking immediately, this is the future.
And naturally, you needed one.
Absolutely. And after finishing the 9th grade, I started working full time, which meant I finally had real money. And one of the first things I wanted to buy was a Panasonic DVD A100, early Panasonic DVD player.
Which cost how much?
6,000 kroner.
Collectors truly are the most dangerous people with money.
So here's where the story gets almost cinematic, because the original plan was simple. I was going to connect the DVD player to my VHS machine.
A very 90s solution.
Yeah, I didn't know any better. But the same day, my mother surprised me. My parents had recently won a huge prize, 100,000 kroner in gift cards too quickly at Danish supermarket. So they had bought themselves a new television, a Sony Triniton 28-inch widescreen. And about a week later, they bought another one for me.
So, the exact same day you bought the DVD player, you suddenly had the perfect television for it.
Exactly. Everything just fell into place. The future had arrived in my room, and the first movies I watched looked incredible. Sharper, more cinematic, closer to the theater experience I had always dreamt about.
So, the collector had evolved again.
Once the DVD player entered my life, another discovery followed short after: the chip.
Oh yes, the forbidden upgrade.
A friendly guy at the local electronics store told me something incredible. DVD players could be modified. With a small chip inside the machine, you could suddenly play movies from anywhere in the world.
Region codes, the invisible prison of cinema.
Exactly. Once my player was chipped, an entire new universe of movies opened.
Let me guess, you and Jens went completely insane.
Naturally, because suddenly we could buy movies from the United States, movies Danish store didn't even carry. Cult films, sci-fi, horror, action.
The collector's paradise.
And around the same time, something else entered our house. The internet.
The prehistoric age of the web.
Now, most people in Denmark didn't get the internet until around the year 2000, but my father was a school teacher, and actually, we got it early.
Early adopter privileges.
Which meant I suddenly had a dial-up modem, the famous screaming connection sound, pages that took 5 minutes to load, and a phone line that no one else in the house could use while I was online.
The golden age of patience.
But suddenly, I could search for movies, find out if they existed on DVD, write the titles down, and try to order them.
Like a digital treasure hunt.
Yeah, this was before online shopping was a possibility, and at the time, if you were under 18, you couldn't get a credit card. So at first I tried ordering through local stores, but many of the older films were impossible for them to get. Movies like RoboCop or Ghostbusters were surprisingly difficult to find at the time.
Which meant you needed a better supplier.
Exactly. And then I discovered something legendary, a Danish store called Laserdisken. Now, before Amazon, before streaming, before every movie was one click away, there was something magical, a catalog.
Children, gather around. This is how collectors survived before the modern age.
Every new month, a new catalog would arrive from Laserdisken. And to a movie collector, that catalog felt like a treasure map, page after page of films. Horror, sci-fi, cult classics, movie you have never even heard of before.
And the best part, the reviews.
Short little write-ups from the staff. Not corporate marketing. Actual movie fans recommending films they love. And the features like picture and audio.
The original algorithm.
You could sit for hours flipping through those pages, planning future purchases, dreaming about films you hadn't seen yet. Laserdisc didn't just sell movies, they opened a door to the world where collectors could find about anything. And honestly, for Danish film collectors, Laserdisc was never just a store, it was like an institution.
And possibly responsible for several bankruptcies.
Worth every krone. By the late 2000s, another technological shift arrived. High definition.
Oh yes, the age of Blu-ray.
Around 2008, I bought my first flat-screen plasma television, and with it, PlayStation 3, which of course doubled as a Blu-ray player.
Naturally.
But collectors always face the same problem, region codes. So eventually I did what any serious movie collector would do. I bought an American PS3 as well.
2 consoles just to watch movies from anywhere.
Exactly, because by then the obsession had evolved again. Movies from Europe, the United States, Asia, anywhere.
The global collector.
And today I have 2 region-free 4K players, which means I can watch films from anywhere in the world, DVD, Blu-ray, 4K, no borders. But the real dream started much earlier. Back in 1996, when Jens and I walked out of the cinema after watching Independence Day.
The mothership moment.
Those massive UFOs above the cities, the explosions, the scale. Walking out of that theater, I remember thinking one thing. I want that at home.
Ambitious.
I wanted a big picture, a screen where the UFOs would actually feel huge. Where Jason could stalk across the woods in Friday the 13th on a 3-meter screen. Where horror movies could feel bigger than life.
Collector's Cathedral.
And in 2014, that dream finally became a reality. A projector, a large screen, my own home cinema.
The prophecy fulfilled.
And something funny happened. Because when you watch The Evil Dead on a projector, you never want to watch it on a small television again.
Once you go big, you never go back.
Especially that film. The one I randomly found in a small grocery store when I was 14. A movie that had stayed with me ever since.
A collector's origin relic.
And that dream kept evolving. Just over a year ago, I upgraded the projector to 4K, and recently, Dolby Atmos entered the room.
So now, the monsters can scream from above you.
Which means that the little kid who pressed the red record button, or the teenager who recorded movies all night, the young man flipping through Laserdisc catalogs, all of it led right here.
So, Søren, after all these years, what have we learned?
That sometimes dreams takes decades. But if you keep chasing movies long enough, the story eventually becomes full circle.
On that note,
Keep your tapes rewound.
your disc spinning. Stay possessed.